I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. With us, our next guest is all about data mining. He calls it predictive linguistics. Before I even bring him on, I want to say he's made a lot of big calls. On the night of the election, he said two big things. He said Trump would win big if they didn't cheat him. He did win big. Considering all the cheating in all the states like California and the illegal voting, he won huge. He also made this prediction, and that was Hillary Clinton. Our data sets say she's going to go missing. What happened the night of the election when she lost? She was missing. Another big prediction that he's made a bunch of them, and accurate ones too. The earlier part of this year when Bitcoin was $600, $700, $800 an ounce, he said, Bitcoin's going to take off. Bitcoin's going to take off first. Gold and silver later, but Bitcoin's going to take off. What is it now? 2,500 a unit right now, and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about Bitcoin. Of course, I'm talking about Clif High from halfpasthuman.com. Clif High, thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Thanks for asking, Greg. It's always a treat.
There is listen, first of all, I don't want you to be trashing another guy on the internet. I mean, Mike Adams wrote this piece. He's the health ranger. Nice fella. A smart guy.
Oh, he's a great guy.
Great guy, smart guy, but he wrote this piece warning people about Bitcoin, about not going all in, and they should buy gold and silver, which they probably should buy gold and silver. But he was talking about how, and I've had other people, you have promoted this a little bit. Other people have written me about Mike Adams' piece about it being a Ponzi scheme, about it being a tulip mania like they had over in Holland, 200-300 years ago. That can the Fed stop the Bitcoin? They're only watching it to stop it. Can we start with the Mike Adams
Sure.
article, in that it's a Ponzi scheme, and that the Fed is going to stop it, or just going to whenever they want to stop it, or it's just a mania, just a bubble. What is going on with Bitcoin? Let's just start just with Bitcoin.
Let's start with Mike Adams' perspective, okay? And his perspective has a basic assumption that I find to be invalid. And that basic assumption is that you're going to want to get out of cryptocurrencies. Okay, the idea is, from his article, that somehow the dollar is where you want to get out of Bitcoin into. And my perception here is that he's entirely wrong historically. That we're not at a period of time where we're valuing one asset against another. That is to say, one store of wealth, Bitcoin, against a store of debt, the dollar. What we're instead doing is we're looking at what I'm calling episodic hyperinflation. And it is an episode in which there's a great number of people that lose faith in the dollar and they rush into Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. And the people that are in there decide that they need to use dollars temporarily, and so they sell some of theirs and then use those dollars and then come back into the cryptos at a later date. And so it's episodic. It's little waves that just come in and out of the crypto space based on the degrading level of confidence in the U.S. dollar. So we are at a global currency reset at this point. It is not being run by officialdom. There will be no Bretton Woods conference that's meaningful. There will be no central bank G7 meeting that is meaningful because these individuals are behind the curve. And the curve is being led by all of the people as they lose confidence in the fiat currencies. In past hyperinflations, such as the tulip mania, that was actually an attempt to get out of degrading florins. And so it was not trying to make money on tulips. They were desperate to leave the losing situation in florins. And what is driving the impetus now into cryptos is the demographics that are involved with the baby boomers needing to retire. And yet for the last 30 years, yields have dried up down to zero at the direct signature of the managers of the Federal Reserve and the dollar. So we have demonstrable proof that the managers of the dollar are very bad at it. Lots of people understand this, and they want out of the dollar and into something else. And also, it is a world starved for yield. So there has not been yield to be able to have a retirement program going on for these last 40 years. Most insurance companies require 6% yield in order to make it as a firm. So most insurance companies are teetering. They're on the brink as it is now. All pension programs are defunct because as their assets, they are claiming debt, somebody else's debt, which won't be paid.
Bonds.
And so
Uh,
So those are true Ponzi schemes. We know that the Bitcoin and the cryptocurrencies are not a Ponzi scheme, although there are Ponzi schemes within them. Okay, crooks are taking advantage of the mania, which is a description of an emotional condition, not an economic state. But the crooks are taking advantage of the emotional fear that people have, trying to get out of the dollar into something solid, and they're presenting opportunities to rip these individuals off of their wealth that they're trying to shift by coming up with what I'm calling fake coins, so to speak, right? Like fake news. So we're not at a point in time where 30 years from now people will sell their Bitcoin and go into dollars. Okay, 30 years from now somebody will discover a great hoard of dollars, paper dollars printed somewhere, and we'll sell them off as curiosity items the way we would sell off Confederate currency or continental currency now. It will have no value then, and everybody will be, and they'll be selling those for some form of cryptocurrency. The reason I say this is twofold. In my work, it's come to my attention that the powers that be decided we were going to go into what I call sci-fi world, a very, very, very high-tech species that has just barely touched technology, is just starting in it. And in that world, you don't trade gold and silver back and forth as a medium of exchange. It's just too slow and too clunky, and your society can't function. And so we desperately needed an alternative to the now degrading fiat, and now we have the cryptos. The powers that be have decided that the cryptos are a good thing. You notice no countries are passing laws against them. And as a result of this, the cryptos are now taking off and taking the position of the fiat currencies. And the only difference between the dollar, won, yen, euro, and all of those is that those fiat are issued by individual sovereigns that allow butt heads to be in charge of the issuing. The cryptos are a self-managing, algorithmically based system that's issued by all of us, all the people that get involved with it. We also know that the cryptos are not a Ponzi scheme, Bitcoin specifically, because there's only going to be 21 million of them. You cannot have a limited Ponzi scheme. They, by their nature, they must be unlimited because you're always taking money from the people below in order to give it to the people that are cashing out on the top. So Mike Adams' criticisms are unfounded. They're from a perspective that's 40 or 50 years old, where the dollar was the king and would always be so. And it's my perspective that historically we've gone beyond that, and we're at one of those little flux points where one system is dying off and we're just about to head into the other one. And as we go into that transition into the other one, this point of time that we're in right now is where all of this is coming up. All the froth, all the corruption globally, all of this is exposed because we can't pay for it with dying dollars anymore. You can't bribe people with dying dollars. And so we've got to have good, solid money. We're developing it on our own because the sovereigns failed us. So whenever we get to a situation of like when the sovereigns failed to provide wheat through an effective system, the French Revolution happened and off with their heads. You know, we can't take being starved by a bunch of buttheads at the top. We, the people, can tolerate a great deal. The body politic is self-correcting. We're robust. We're solid. But at some point, stupidity weighs down on us too much, and we've decided that's it. We've got to get rid of them. And it's basically a very tribal kind of a thing. If you're following behind a tribal leader that everybody sees as getting the tribe into problem after problem after problem with no resolution, pretty soon that leader goes away, and then you try something else. And we're at that point right now. And in this case, we've decided that the buttheads in charge of the Fed and the body politic, those guys have to go because they're just too corrupt, too criminal, and they're in our way. And they're not going to be able to transition us effectively into sci-fi world. I mean, these people still think the sun is a nuclear reactor and that we're going to have a global warming because of SUVs. Their thinking is so last century, we just can't tolerate it anymore.
And I wanted to get into the fact that that the Federal Reserve is now talking about not raising interest rates. And they were talking about raising interest rates. Whether, you know, if they wanted to protect the dollar, they'd jack interest rates up. But they're not going to do it. They're afraid the whole derivative complex, I guess, will unwind. If they do have rising interest rates, that's the problem that Trump's going to have, is that I think he's going to be successful. I think the bond market's going to go crazy because rates will have to go up. What about the Federal Reserve? Are they with this whole idea that, well, now they're not going to do 3 rate hacks of 1/4 of a point. They may do one. They may do none. Now we're getting bad numbers for jobs, and we're getting soft numbers in the economy, and all of a sudden the Fed Reserve, are they even relevant at this point?
I was just going to bring that up. The analogy I'm trying to come up with is, here you've got a bunch of guys that are desperately trying to be mechanics on a engine we're not even running on anymore. Who cares what they do for the dollar? Who cares what their approach is to try and save the banks? Both of the dollar and the banks are doomed. I'm not messing with either of those. And hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands, millions of people are also in this same, let's abandon these fellows and get on with business.
And let's talk about hyperinflation. Some charts. One of the things in your report, and folks, this is a 25-page report. He talks about 29 currencies. He told me off camera, Cliff. You told me off camera. There's 750 cryptos.
There's over 750. Yes.
So this has got some big ones in it. We'll go through some of the big ones: Ethereum, Ripple, Steemit. We'll go through some of those. But back to my question about the inflation. The inflation is going to be reflected, and this is another thing that you said, and you accurately said. He says, with gold and silver, they will come up later, but they're too manipulated. They're too easy to manipulate. That's about what you said. Right. He says it's harder to manipulate. It can be, but it's harder to manipulate cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. And what you're going to see is people running into a medium where they can't manipulate it, and you'll see these price spikes. So now you're talking that this isn't going to be just 2,500 or whatever it is now, the cryptocurrency 2250. I don't know what it is per unit right now, but you're saying it's going to go to $13,000-$14,000, and it ain't going to take years. It's going to take months. Is that right?
Correct. Correct. I've got a what they call a strike point, which is a numeric value that our data sets are aiming at, that shows Bitcoin should be about 13,800 sometime in early February of next year. So about 6-7 months, and there we are. And that'll be basically a 5-fold increase over what we're at now. This will continue the sort of rate of growth of these.
And hold on just a minute. I just want to come back here now. And you're saying that this is really a function of the death of the dollar. And somebody else, Rob Kirby, said the same thing, is that these explosions in cryptocurrencies really means the dollar's dying.
Correct.
He said
Correct.
the same thing.
Absolutely.
You did, actually. And so you're saying that this is a result of the death of the dollar. So holding on to stacks of 20s outside the banking system isn't going to help you much or for long. Is that right?
That's quite correct. I mean, their acknowledged goal is to steal 2% of your money every year. That's what the Federal Reserve sets up. Inflation, right. Which means we steal from you. That's their word for we steal from you. And so they want to steal from you 2% every year. The fact of the matter is that we know that global quantitative easing has never stopped. It's just shuffled from one central banking center to another so as to disguise it from the various populations. And we're at a position now where realistically, inflation, especially on food items, is reaching up into 18 and 20%. So you're going to lose 1/5 of the purchasing power of your dollar just messing about with it. And at the same time as that, because of the limited supply and because of the various bottlenecks, the dollar price of other assets is going up, except for where they're controlled by the central banks. And it's my contention that the cryptos had to go first. They had to roar off first in order to upset the central banking algorithmic structure such that then silver and gold could break loose. And I suspect silver will break loose. I suspect that the rocket shot on that will be staggering, that the silver and gold people will be falling all over themselves. Now, however, bear in mind, I'm the internet's worst silver forecaster for price. Okay,
no, I got you. Okay, all right.
Okay,
all right.
Because I've had prices for silver at $600 an ounce that have been in the data since 2003. So if indeed that's going to occur, look at how rapid and how shocking that rise is going to be. Now, I also have data that shows that gold lags behind Bitcoin, but that by February of next year, gold will be in the $4,800 range. So that says to me that the breakdown of the suppression system is underway by that point or has occurred, and things are just starting to take off for the metal. And I expect also that there will be some level of slosh where we get people that make profits in
So
the
wait, so
cryptos.
gold and silver will take off this year or next year?
No, they'll take off this year, such that by the time that we get to next year, dollar values will be over 4,800 an ounce for gold. Okay, so it's not going to happen overnight that it would double, but it'll, over that period of time, whatever it is now to February, it'll go from its current price up to about 4,800 an ounce. That's just what our data shows.
And then what about silver?
Silver, we have 600 an ounce somewhere, we think, before that period of time. Okay, and then silver thereafter goes basically towards parity, which is to say that we don't get numbers for it relative to dollars. We get numbers for silver relative to ounces of gold, and that we're going to go from a ratio of whatever it is now down to 1 to 1.
It's about, I don't know, 60 or 70 times, something like that. It's
okay,
high.
And so that would be the basic metric that you could use to judge how far silver is going to rise relative to gold's price over these next 8, 9, 10 months. At some point in February or so of next year, after we've achieved, or around the time we're achieving the $4,800 an ounce for gold, we're going to see real evidence of hyperinflation flooding out everywhere as the last parts of the body politic and the religion of the central banks is basically giving up the last of their lifeblood over those next couple of years. So 2018 is going to be a critical year. It's going to be horrific for everybody in the Western world, insofar as our financial system, and therefore everything is going to be affected by it. All our politics, our monies, our healthcare system, our food, everything's going to be affected by how bad the monetary system, the problems of the monetary system in 2018. So basically, if you're going to try and do something, this is the year to do it, okay, 2017, because it all comes unglued this year, and it'll be your last year to get some more or less regular stuff done. And then we're going to go into this big period of chaos that will be economically driven, not financial, but economically driven. That is to say, the economy, our confidence in the dollar and our ability to trade and deal with each other at a global basis will be so shattered that we won't have any confidence in the economy, and therefore anything based on that economy, which is the current financial system. Now, the cryptocurrencies are forming their own separate economy with people trading in and doing business in the cryptocurrencies globally. And so it's rising as the dollar system is dying. So it's never going to be a situation of one day we're all doing dollars and then the next day we're all doing cryptos. It's that some people are transiting now. They'll be into cryptos as other people are still in dollars. They're getting more and more into cryptos. They're out of dollars. And other people are trailing behind them, just starting to get into it. And it'll take a long time because there's 7 billion of us. So we can expect this to go on for perhaps decades. But the big kickoff in terms of sports metaphor happens this year, such that the game is fully engaged by 2018.
And there's no safety in yuan or pound sterling or real or rupee or yen. All that's the same basket of debt garbage.
Correct. You're dealing with the same group of buttheads trying to manage your currency. And it's a question of, do you have any faith, trust, and confidence in the people at the top of the system that you're involved in? If not, then one way now to get out, to vote, so to speak, with your lack of confidence, is to get into cryptocurrencies or gold and silver. Gold and silver especially is the most undervalued asset on the planet at the moment. It's not going to return a huge amount of money to you 3 months from now. It's not going to be that kind of an asset in the future. It is money, so you're not going to be converting it to currency necessarily. You may in the future as you need to. So I don't see silver as an investment vehicle, because the idea would be that you would have to convert it back into fiat in order to profit from the investment, right? And so if the fiat is of no use to you, then you're not going to be doing any conversions that way. Sort of makes sense?
Well, it means you're just going to protect. It's going to be a true store of value.
Correct. And at the time that you need to convert it from a store of value to an exchange medium, you may at that point actually take the stuff to an exchange and convert it to cryptos. Or you may swap it over for, cars or houses or whatever it is you're actually going to buy.
I'm of the mind, and tell me if this is crazy. I'm of the mind that at some point the Trump administration isn't going to try to tax gold and silver. I think they're going to say, you know what, like the state of Arizona just passed a law where they're no longer taxing gold and silver. It's just money. We don't tax it. Whatever you make is whatever it is. You just got to pay the federal government. I think at some point, I think the economy is going to get so bad that the Trump administration is going to say, listen, take your gold, take your silver to a car dealer, to a closing table, buy a house, buy a car, use it any way you'd like, just to get the gold and silver back into the system. That's what I think should happen.
I agree with you. They will do away with it.
They'll go crazy. They'll do all kinds of stuff that people can't even dream of. Is that wrong?
Sure. They'll take away the capital gains tax as the states are doing, and liberate the gold and silver from the concept of it being an asset, and return it back to the idea of a monetized currency. And at that point, it will circulate, but its value will be such that it's going to be very valuable stuff indeed, and you wouldn't be able to get change for silver ounce in a deal somewhere. You might be able to buy a car for an ounce of silver. Who knows how valuable it's going to be? But it is heading towards parity with gold, and the parity with gold is going to be very difficult for the functioning part of the economy. That is to say, for those manufacturers and so forth that depend on silver. So you're going to still, even though we're going to have all the dollar crises and all this kind of stuff going on, yuan and the renminbi and Australian dollar and Canadian dollar and so on, in chaos, you're still going to have people trying to make Apple iPhones in China and sell them back to us. And so there's still going to be this continuous draw and demand on silver at an industrial level that will continue on, even as the prices in fiat terms for silver are scaling up. And it's going to be very interesting by the time we get to this point next year to see how we're dealing as a species with the various conflicts for these things. So, for instance, it may be that one of the things the federal government does is to say you can spend as much damn gold as you want, no capital gains tax on it. But
no Patriot Act, no terrorist
thing,
nothing.
Correct. Nothing
please.
On that. Gold is free. It's money. Use it. Let's get it into circulation. But if you've got an ounce of silver, you must strategically sell it to the U.S. government, and this is the price that we're going to force you to take. They may well do that because silver is such a strategic metal now, and in the future, its strategic value might be 10 or 20 times higher than it is now because of the technologies that will be coming online in a couple of years.
Yeah, and dude, you just predicted the biggest black market on the face of the earth if that happens. Silver
exactly
will become
so.
A huge black market. If you have a 1963 dime, a U.S. dime, you'd have yourself, $500 or something. You know what I'm saying? What do you say to the people that say, well, what about EMP attack? What about putting it offline? What about taking cryptocurrencies and we have an EMP attack or the power goes out or whatever? Then you got nothing,
okay, well,
right?
Here's the thing.
And so what do you say to those people? Because that's the kind of thing that people have asked me about in preparation for this interview. Ask him about this. Ask him about that. So I'm asking you. So what do you say to people that say, what about EMP attacks and getting knocked offline and losing power and what good is your cryptocurrencies at that point?
Well, okay, let's start with the losing the power. If you lose power, you've lost all your digital dollars, so your bank account is useless. Your ATM is useless. So the two are equal. Cryptocurrencies are actually more useful because as long as you've got your phone and it has power, you can go up to another phone and do a little QR code thing and exchange value between them. You can even do the same thing off of a PC as long as you can provide power to your PC. But this is not true of your dollars. You can't take your phone, it's got its power, and you can't take a car battery to an ATM and get anything out of that ATM. Nor can you refire up your bank. But you can with cryptocurrencies because it's all in your hands. This is a do-it-yourself kind of a currency.
Not centralized.
Not centralized at all. As long as there's one computer with the blockchain, it can be replicated and the whole thing can be recreated from one single computer. And then the computer doesn't even have to be operating. 1,000 years from now, somebody could find all the computers shut down, but find one that had the blockchain still on the drive and recreate the blockchain from that point on.
Oh, let me introduce that. And so, blockchain, computer. We'll come back to that in just a minute. I just want to give people a little primer on you because when you start talking like this, how does he know all this stuff? Clif, for any of you guys don't know, worked for a Microsoft, actually Microsoft Consulting, and he flew all over the world. And some of the worst problems that Microsoft had with their programs, he flew Clif High and other people like him around the world to do Mr. Fix-It. And he had to fix it to get paid. And as you said in the pre-interview, that I never got stiffed. So Clif High is right. I mean, it's very good, right? I mean, I didn't get stiff. I didn't go, oh, I can't fix that. So that's why Clif High is a coder, a programmer, a computer engineer, a software engineer. This is why he does all of his predictive linguistics and gets billions of pieces of information. I'm sorry, I just wanted to give that little segue. Now back to the if you have one computer, you can replicate the blockchain. Back to the blockchain.
From any point on,
there
right?
You go.
And also say that the internet goes down. Okay,
yes.
Well, we don't really need the internet for the blockchain to work, because I can set up a BBS here, a bulletin board system, and have other people dial in on old dial-up modems, and we're back up and running. So it's very robust, very non-critical, many points of recovery, very few points of failure, unlike the dollar. The dollar is centralized. Anything happens to the central authority, your dollar's gone. And in fact, you have no control over your dollar continuously, because the central authority is out there monkeying around with it. Now let's deal with the issue of the EMP and get that out of the way. An EMP is an electromagnetic pulse. It's at certain specific frequencies. The frequencies are designed to penetrate through the metallic or plastic shielding of your PC and fry the chips and the circuits, and everything is shot. Okay, it doesn't really destroy the plastic, although it could cause fires. But the idea is that it would destroy it electrically. An EMP is something that they've been studying since the 1950s. And as a result of that, when my father went through the War College in Leavenworth, Virginia, or Leavenworth, Kansas, War College had a course that he had to take on these systems, and I helped him with his math. And it was at that time, in the 1960s, it was decided that the powers that were thinking about it then in the U.S. military thought that it would take 250 hydrogen bombs, all coordinated in their being set off at a specific altitude above the nation of the United States, in order to have a national EMP effect. So they discounted it as never could possibly occur. The reason it could never possibly occur is you can't have these things explode too high up in the atmosphere. So one bomb is not going to do it. You actually need to have them at a specific height all across the nation, and you need to have them all explode simultaneously. If one goes off first, it destroys all the others that are near it, and they don't explode, they just fall to the ground. So it's virtually impossible was the thinking in the 60s, for anybody to coordinate this. Now, you could say, oh, well, they've got better bombs now, which is true, but the mathematics for the radiation doesn't change. They still need to be relatively close within the atmosphere. You can't detonate them at 50,000 feet or 100,000 feet. They need to be down in the order of 25,000 feet, and their range is relatively limited, no matter the size of the bomb, simply because of the radiation cone pattern. So EMP is something that can't happen. The sun could do it, true. The sun could take it down. And if that goes, yes, you've lost all your cryptocurrencies, and your PC is totally dead. You'll never recover those cryptocurrencies, and the ones in the bank are also gone, but it won't matter because you're also dead. So you won't have any use for spending any currencies. The electrical grid would go down, and most of the people on the planet would die within a few weeks for a number of different causes. And so cryptocurrencies, or gold or silver, are meaningless under that circumstance. So if we want to really worry about things, we need to get our ducks in a row and decide which duck we're actually worrying about. Hyperinflation is what's killing us all now. Hyperinflation and the bad management of our fiat infrastructure is causing us to lose confidence in episodes. It's like any other thing. I used to have this analogy that I would use when I was first starting out this and trying to explain to people the difference between an event and the perception of an event, and how the two frequently are exactly the same, okay? And so you're in a theater and you're sitting there. This is an experience many people will not have had these days, many of the millennials, but these theaters are these dark rooms in which you stare at a big screen that's like a television or a PC, and entertainment is provided. But the room is dark and you're in there with lots of other people. And if in the middle of that theater experience, you've got a girl that's 3 or 4 rows down from you in another seat, and she feels something on her leg, looks down and sees her friend's coat and thinks it's some kind of an animal, and she jumps up and screams because she thinks she's been bit by a weasel or something, who knows. just a moment of fright, that moment of fright can go through the whole dark room of that theater as though there's been a fire or terrorism incident, something, and all of a sudden, instantly, everybody is emotionally involved in that same bit of fright that came from that one instance with the girl's coat on her foot. And so it was a perception of a threat that caused it. The threat was not real, but the perception is swept through the crowd. This is what we're looking at now with the cryptocurrencies. Only we're seeing it on we're feeling it as the confidence fades in the management of the dollar, as we see these buttheads up there parading themselves daily in the broadcast media, making butthead pronouncements that are completely stupid and wrong. And then you say to yourself, and these people are managing our money? And so at some level, you decide, oh, well, I'll take a flutter on those cryptos, Can't hurt. The dollar isn't worth anything anyway, and maybe I'll do something with these cryptos. Well, and it's actually a good thing because it's episodic. It flows. And so, because not everybody can get through that door at the same time. So the criticism, getting back to Mike Adams' article and some of these others that say, no, you can't get out of cryptos. 98% of people can't get out of cryptos if we all decided to sell. And it would be quite true. And 98% of the people couldn't get out of dollars if they tried to sell. There's not enough assets for those dollars to flow into. And that's what everybody in gold and silver was anticipating, was that at some point the confidence would fail in the paper and they would flood into gold and silver. But we have cryptos now, which we need because there's just not enough infrastructure to deliver gold and silver around to all of the people on the planet. And with 7 point some odd billion people and 4 some odd billion ounces of gold in the planet, we could only have a little portion of an ounce of gold per person if we wanted equality to start off an equal system.
Just like
so
a Bitcoin.
Gold and silver they just don't work.
They don't work for transacting business, but they work to protect yourself from the fall of the dollar. They do work for that.
Correct. They're a store of wealth now. They're no longer a currency. So when the British went off, well, the florin, actually, the tulip mania you talked about.
I did not know that. I knew the tulip mania, but I didn't know that there was to get away from a dying currency, basically.
Correct. And it's the same with the death of the Roman Empire. The death of the Roman Empire had nothing to do with politics. It had to do with greedy buttheads at the top that started taking the denarius and putting copper into their silver coin until ultimately there was only 2% silver. And people said, to hell with this. I'm not going to go and fight those Gauls. Those Frenchmen are really fierce. I don't want to go and fight them for this crappy copper coin. You go do it. And the next thing you know, the Gauls are at the gates, and there you go. Rome's done. And so it all comes back to the buttheads in charge of the currency. Now we've eliminated buttheads. Okay, the cryptocurrencies don't require central management. They don't require buttheads in charge. And so we've gotten rid of them all. And so this is a good thing. It's a huge new creation for humanity because now we can have money without buttheads. And let's see what we can do with it.
And Charles Hugh Smith, smart guy, he's writes, and he has this chart about it going up and going up and going up and going up, and he stops at 10,000, which you already said is going to go beyond that. But what he's saying is wait until insurance companies and businesses and hedge funds and money managers that are trying to escape the dollar, that can't buy bonds, that can't, look at Puerto Rican bonds. Look at all the debt that Illinois, they just got downgraded by Moody's and by S&P. Oh, that's horrible. Those people with pensions are dead meat. They are done.
Well,
they are
China's been devalued.
Well, yes, but he says wait until these big money players. Are we at a point where the big money players are in the cryptos at this point in any kind of degree to your research?
What they've actually done is they've discovered they can't buy Bitcoin. Okay, they can't buy enough gold to satisfy them, these big money players, and they also can't buy enough Bitcoin. So what they're actually buying is the access called ETH or Ethereum. Ethereum is not really a coin. It's a monetized token. It has a blockchain. That blockchain synchronizes with the Bitcoin blockchain as they're processed. But the Ethereum blockchain is a layer on top of Bitcoin. You can think of it as a carrier signal on top of the cable, and Bitcoin is your cable. So they're getting in at the Ethereum level because that's much more open, because there's much more space for them to bring in big money. Whereas if they tried to get into Bitcoin, each Bitcoin now might be worth 50, 80, 60,000. We just don't know where it would be if as the insurance companies actually tried to buy into it in order to get yield. We know that they are doing so. Okay, it is possible because it's not truly anonymous. The blockchain, if you know how to do things with the blockchain and look at the numbers and follow the addresses and the public keys, you can sort of see where money is going. And then if occasionally you see a tie-in between an address and a company, you can say, oh, okay, this address belongs to this company. Therefore, all of the Bitcoins that went to that address are in essence flowing to this company. And so if you can make that connection at times, you can see that indeed there are companies that are purchasing Bitcoin. And I know of some firms that have hired individuals like myself to build in-house cold storage because they anticipate putting a lot of money into a lot of dollars into cryptocurrencies and want to do it correctly from the get-go.
Would you be a buyer of? I'm sorry, I interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just going to go off on another subject here.
Well, I wanted to kind of follow this. So you can't do it. You got 750 cryptos out there and growing. You did 29 or 30 in your report. Would you be a buyer of Ethereum?
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. Ethereum's long-term stuff. Okay.
Long-term. Bitcoin, Ethereum. Would you be a buyer of Ripple? What do you think of Ripple?
Okay. Now, here's the thing about Ripple. We have to back up a little bit. There's coins that are mined. Okay, those mining coins like Bitcoin mean that there's lots of computers that are processing the blockchain. And so it's basically distributed, non-centralized. Ripple is not mined. Ripple is not a true coin that way. Ripple is a coin that is created by the banks for their purposes. And so in my way of thinking, it's as bad as the dollar. Now, that having been said, I personally don't own any Ripple, but if I wanted to make some money and take it from the bankers, I would buy Ripple at key points in time and then sell very rapidly in order to take advantage of some up waves that I know are coming. But I don't see Ripple as having long-term value for individuals, nor is it a store of value, nor is it a mined coin, and it is susceptible to all kinds of technical problems.
Okay.
I mean, I don't like their codes at all.
Okay. All right, good. And this is from a guy that does codes for a living and does deep dives on the internet. Steam it. A lot of people have been writing on me going, you should get on Steam it and get paid in Steam. Do you like Steam it? Is that just one of many coins? Do you like it or not?
No, I don't like Steam it. I don't like Steam it, and here's why. I mean, I've been on Steam. I've had an account at the Steam social media for a while. It's Steam as a social media is really good. Steam it as a coin will persist. It's going to have long legs, but it doesn't have real value because see, the thing is, there's no outside of Steam it community mining. So Steam, you're paid in Steam coins, but they say there's a way to get it converted over to Bitcoin and actually get value out of it. But I have yet to see that operate because I don't see any value going into the Steam platform to start with. So here, an analogy is this. Recently, we've had the largest layoff that's ever happened on the planet, and it came out of YouTube. And it affected more individual firms than any other layoff at any time. And it was their supposed advertiser boycott. Now with YouTube, if YouTube had a coin going, you could accept YouTube coins because they've got advertiser dollars coming in. You actually have some inflow into YouTube to get out. There's no advertising, there's no monetization, there's no inflow into Steam it, so they're creating their own Steam coins. And so far, there are people that are giving them sort of the benefit of the doubt, but they don't really hold up in terms of a prospectus as a cryptocurrency.
Okay, and what just off the top of your head, pick a couple of dark horses that people haven't heard much about that you would like in terms of a cryptocurrency that's this is interesting, or this may be something that you may like. I know there's hundreds out there. People have to be careful about buying, a crypto that turns to crap.
Okay, so there's speaking of dark horses, if you wanted to bet long term, as opposed to something that's going to give you a really good quick pop, then I would go for Monero or Cloak. Okay, both of these coins offer strategic use value that is different from other coins. Both of these coins, though, you have to understand, are used by people that don't want their activities to be tracked, some of whom may be criminal. So some of these coins may be used by criminals, but it has to do with their privacy value. I happen to know that both of these coins are being looked at by very large corporations that don't want to betray strategic moves by having their funds tracked around the planet. So, for instance, one company I know, curiously doing business in Antarctica, wants to be able to send value down there that can be exchanged from there. And one of the options they're considering is cryptocurrencies as opposed to moving, digital dollars or this kind of a deal. I won't go into why. My contact with them was fleeting, so I don't have all of the particulars anyway. But so I would go with Cloak and Monero. Other good ones.
Spell Cloak, C-L-O-K-E?
C-L-O-A-K, like cloak room,
Cloak.
or like a cloaked Klingon ship, that kind of thing, right?
Okay, and a Monero, spell that.
Monero, right. Those are good. Dash is good.
M-O-N-E-R-O?
Correct. As in like an Italianized version of the idea of money.
Yeah, Monero.
And they're very good in terms of both of those are good in terms of their code. There's breakages all the time in cryptocurrencies in terms of the code, and they get fixed fairly rapidly, and everybody's stealing from each other. Now, Monero and Cloak have two proprietary approaches that are very good that I don't see other companies taking or other coins taking. Both of them are being developed by groups or communities. This is important. So if you look at a cryptocurrency and there's a company behind it, be very wary. If there's only an individual group and individual firm that you can't find a forum of active participating programmers and stuff in there bitching and moaning about what's going on, then it's not an active community. It has no network effect. If you go, for instance, and read in Ethereum or some of these other forums, you're going to find people that are just fiercely beating each other up about the head about various different technical components. And that's what you want to see in your cryptocurrencies, because then you know people have an emotional attachment to it. They're fighting for it. They're actively involved. So Ripple, you don't get that. You get a couple of people at the top that are fighting about Ripple versus stellar lumens or something, which is another form of Ripple. They both have the same inherent flaws. You can make money on those, but you got to be really careful and really quick. Another one you could make money on is like PrivX. PrivX is a privacy coin. It's going to pop really well because it's got a lot of shine and pizzazz at the moment on the internet, but it's not going to last because there's nothing in its technology that is inherent and protectable. So its technology for privacy will be adopted by other coins and it'll gradually fade. But for maybe the next year or so, it might be a very good value. And that's the way the cryptocurrencies world is going to be for a while. New coins popping up. Old coins dying off as they have no special use case. And so when I examine these things, I look for a special use case, I look for a network community, and I look for certain levels of emotional attachment to the coin other than at a speculative level. So you got to have a lot of people that are, I'm real hot on this coin, but only because they want to cash in and make some dinero now. And those kind of coins are easy to see within our linguistics because the linguistics betray it all. And so if you find a community of people that are not talking about the cryptocurrency that way, but are bitching and moaning about, this is causing me fits and it should be this way, and we're talking code about it and so on, then you've got people that are the mechanics of the system and will keep it running. And so you can use that as an effective judge as to which of these 750 will be around for a while. But you're after a special case use. So Bitcoin, Ethereum has a special case use that won't be overtaken. So some of these things you can actually say, they've got long legs.
And the Fed can't stop this. That's one of my questions. The Fed cannot stop this. The short answer.
The Federal Reserve Bank, which is not part of the federal government, has no reserves and is not a bank, can't do anything to affect this. They're behind the curve. They're trying to study it because they don't grasp the idea behind it, and because they're basically very stupid. They're academics. They've never done any work in the real world. None of them could probably drive a screw or hammer a nail if you gave them all the tools and written instructions. And so their opinion of these are always going to be negative because they're basically chasing the lack of confidence in their product and their management as it flows away from them. And so they're seeing everything from the backside. My perspective of this is being on the front side of all of these because I read the white paper when it came out in 2009. And I was anticipating something along these lines as early as 2005 based on the predictive linguistics. So I knew Bitcoin was going to run. I knew it was going to hit. I also knew that this was the time of history, that is to say 2017, when I needed to seriously devote effort to getting the word out about the cryptocurrencies and specific ones sort of to make up for being the world's worst silver forecaster. So
Well,
some people that can make some money on this.
You're just going to be early, not bad. You're just going to be early.
Correct.
Being early makes you look wrong. I know that with doing stories.
Yeah.
Last two questions. I'm gonna lump them together, and they are simply this: there is a global financial reset coming, and I want you to explain that. And also, one of the things you said in your report, and please, there's a lot in this report. I can't get to it all. It's 25 pages long. It's only $15, and I don't get paid anything for.
No. This is $99.
This is expensive. Okay, this is great. I'm glad. Okay, so this is. I know you put a ton of work into. You've been working on this for a long time. So this is a big one. This is got real good research. This is a different one, big one. Okay, at the end of this.
Also. The other, let's be clear about that too. The reason that the price is as it is because this report is entirely for speculators. Okay, and if you've got the money to go on out and speculate in cryptocurrencies, and you're using my information, then I should get paid, get value out of it. But if you just want to save your assets, buy Bitcoin, buy Ethereum, stash them away on a hardware wallet or in a printed fashion, and don't worry about it. Think maybe about selling your Bitcoin if you need to, retirement funds in 2022 or something. But hang on to them, because in 2020, the halving comes. Every time that happens, Bitcoin doubles in price within the next month or so. So whatever it is in 2020, when the halving comes, say $60,000, well, it'll jump to $120,000 within a short period of time. And so you need only hold it for a few years in order to get that kind of gain out of it. And so it can be, Bitcoin and Ethereum can both be long-term buy and hold propositions, the way you used to hold like key stocks and bonds.
Okay, all right, good deal. And then the last question about the global financial reset, and that the elite are fearful. Now you say we're having a reset, it's coming, it's actually starting, and you're saying the elite are fearful. Why?
Because they don't control it. Okay, they are behind the curve, and now they're starting to catch on to the fact that they're behind the curve. It's really, when you look at the linguistics involved here, you see that at the very, 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 very top of our social order, at the very top two people probably, they made a decision when cryptos came along that it was no point trying to suppress them. It was too late. That if they attempted to suppress it, all they would do would be to put more energy into it, basically, because it was not possible to suppress it the way gold and silver would be suppressed, because you don't have control of the sources. And so cryptos have run ever since. Now we're in a position where what we can think of as the people that think of themselves as the power elite, but are actually really not. Those guys are all freaking out because they realize cryptocurrencies are here to stay, and that the fiat currencies are dying. And these people never made any big study in cryptos. They responded to the lies of their own media. And, Bitcoin's dead how many times now, that kind of thing. And so all of these people are very afraid, because decentralized world means they don't have power. Now, on top of that, if I were at the top, just the basic guy I am, and I saw that the world was changing, it's like, oh, fine, okay, I'd get myself a pole, I'm going to go off fishing. I don't need to do this. And no harm, no foul. But I don't have 150 years of crime and corruption to hide. Okay, I don't have to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars to continually bribe people. So under those circumstances, these individuals are very frightened, because they know that the things that the people that know things about them were being bribed with dollars, and dollars don't work anymore. And in the decentralized world, these people don't have an endless source of cheap, free money. They're not sucking on the tit of privilege anymore. And so they're down there grubbing with the rest of us, and it has them frightened. I mean, the Queen of England is really, well, she's mentally ill, but I mean, the royals, her progeny, are not yet aware that 5 years from now, they're going to need a job, because nobody's going to be giving them sterling. We're not even going to be using sterling. We'll be using cryptos, and cryptos will be so valuable, you're not going to give it to those buffoons that managed the last system and down into the toilet where we had to all flush it. And that's basically where we're at. The system is resetting itself without the authorities. The last time this happened was, it's never ever happened this way before, but the last time we had a system reset was Richard Nixon, 1972. He took us off of the nominal gold standard, and we've been on 100% fiat paper ever since. Prior to that, it was a Bretton Woods agreement. Prior to that, it was the gold standard at the end of the failing empire from the British and the revaluation of the sterling, the pound sterling. And so each and every time in the past, it has been run by the powers at the top, the Bilderbergers and these kind of guys. Well, the Bilderbergers have no power if we're not paying attention to euros and dollars.
And finish your thought. Go ahead. I want to tell you something else about a prediction that you made. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's always been my statement that, when the dollar goes, all the crimes come out. And this is the first time in history, absolutely most unique time in history ever, because here we're going to have great fortunes made. Some people that have gotten in on the ground of the cryptos are going to make absolute great fortunes because they're very smart individuals. And this is the first time that we'll be able to say, here is a great fortune that did not arise from a great crime.
Ah, wow. Wow. One of the things you said was the DNC wouldn't even be around, that the Democratic National Committee, that the Democrats wouldn't be around in 4 years. That's one of the predictions you made. Yeah. So Hillary Clinton was at CodeCon, and you know what that is, in 2017. I know you know what that is. And she blurts out, the DNC, their computer system was terrible, and it was a mess, and I had to, they're on the brink of insolvency. I couldn't believe she blurted that out. The DNC on the brink of insolvency. I had to put money into it. Yeah, money that was donated, bribes evidently to her. I had to put money into it to keep it afloat. I couldn't believe she blurted that out at CodeCon. I mean, doesn't that pay off your prediction? Isn't that a marker on the road to prediction for the end of the Democrat Party?
Yeah.
Another one of your predictions, is that right?
That's correct, and the situation will be much more rapid than that. I think that by 2019, it'll be quite clear that the political infrastructure in the United States is no longer duopoly.
Well, they've given up on the. I mean, they talk about working people like they're dogs. Working people. I saw some poll that 60% of voters think that the mainstream media is not for them, works against them. 60% of voters.
And are they wrong?
There's Democrats or former Democrats that's unbelievable. I mean,
this is what I find so troubling is the language.
And this is part of your. Tell me about what you find troubling in the language.
The intensity that is still going on now about the loss of the election. Usually in the first 4 months of an election cycle after the election, everybody is sort of reconciled to the current situation. You didn't like George Bush, senior or junior, it doesn't matter. But, you go on and you get things done, right? This time we don't have that. And at first I thought it was an organized kind of a resistance due to somebody individually deciding now was the time to do this for particular reasons. Now I'm of the opinion that really what's going on is the fear level within the power elite. They're desperate to stop the inevitability of the boulder crushing them, and the boulder being the loss of their cover because the currencies are dying and they can't bribe people anymore. And so all the corruption is coming out. And so since they've been in charge, basically the powers that be, Republican or Democrat, have been in charge for the last 40 years, they're the most corrupt. They're the ones that have the most to hide. And so they are desperate that the system continue regardless of the personality. And so they would have the worst possible criminal involved be in charge rather than have any person from the outside be in charge. And so that's really what's going on at the moment. It's not as though there is a brainiac.
That's why they wanted Hillary, because she was the biggest criminal that they could find. That's
correct.
Why the elite wanted Hillary. And that's why they didn't want Donald Trump, who's working as president for $1.
Correct.
He's the boulder going to land on their head. And that's what the climate change thing. Nobody attacked him on, listen, China can increase pollution and build coal-fired plants that won't be clean until the year 2030. They can increase pollution. So can India. That's what is that, 2.5 billion people on the planet. This is such an imminent threat that we're going to let the two biggest, most populated nations on the face of the planet increase their pollution while we pay for it and lose jobs, and then nobody attacked him on that when he got out of the Paris Accord. Did you think that was a good move by Trump? Is that going to...
Sure. Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. Be a monkey wrench, just, sabotage, throw the wooden shoe into the machinery and watch it break because that machinery is taking us someplace we don't want to go. I mean, I knew we were in real trouble when you started seeing an alignment of the religion of global warming and the political left and the progressives. And then pretty soon it got to the point where the progressives came to the understanding that if you were against global warming as an idea, you were not to be allowed to speak, and it was illegal, and they should shut you down forever. And so it's really one of those things, you know who rules when you know what you're not allowed to criticize, right? And so you know who's in charge and what the power structure is. Now we're watching the destruction of all of this as all their language fails under manifesting circumstance. It's awful hard to tell me that there's going to be global warming when I'm standing in a blizzard in Colorado in June. You know, you just are not going to get my attention with your bullshit anymore. And so that has reached the point where it's this whole confidence thing. We have buttheads in charge, and we're not going to listen to their bullshit anymore, especially about things like global warming. Now, true, we have climate change. We're heading into an ice age, and anybody that believes the global warmists they're not going to take the appropriate actions, and they will not survive long term because we're going to be hit hard by increasing prices especially on those things we need, food and energy, and it's going to get rough and brutal. And brutality starts 2018. So if you're going to do something to prepare, you need to do it this year. And unfortunately, this year is the year of chaos as the system comes unglued, the old system, and the new one is making itself manifesting before our eyes as we all work on it. So basically, if you're not working on it, that is to say, getting your assets out of the old dying system, you're stuck there. And if you want to stick and write out the 401k and all of that kind of thing, that's fine. And I'm quite sure that there will be people that will be willing to tax you as they go along. But that whole structure is failing under the butthead load, really.
And does Donald Trump make it? I mean, do they knock him out of the box? It looks like they're not going to knock him out of the box.
No, our data sets have him in there as a pain in the butt a number of years out. So I don't see that that's going to be effective.
So he makes it. He will survive. And a lot of people say, well, that we'll have a financial crash. They'll blame it on Donald Trump. Wait a minute. Let me get this straight. You're going to blame all the buildup of all this crap on the guy that's been in office 8, 9, 10 months? That you're telling me that's going to stick?
No, it won't stick. And we also know that there's been a fundamental shift that the progressives don't grasp, okay? As much as they might want to decry it, the left is now faded. They're now the failing older you can't be the head of the establishment and be the counterculture, and so they can't occupy both niches. And so the fact that they're attempting to use the language of both,
yes,
right, and they're trying to use the language of both of the establishment and thus the authority, but also of the counterculture. That's this resistance and all this other stuff that rings hollow, and all of their cringe moments on the stuff that they put out on Twitter and things, right? It's because these people don't understand. You cannot, you don't have any integrity if you're both the slave master and pretending to be one of the slaves. None of the slaves are going to believe you. And those people that do believe you are simply the small, minor, deluded mass that follows you. And that's not enough to get you the power anymore. So the power system is changing along with the money. It all comes down to the lack of confidence. It doesn't matter where you want to look. You'll find that there's lack of confidence in the same language in our science anymore, especially about climate, in agriculture, about and health, about vaccines, and any number of things. No matter where you look, it is the lack of confidence in the established order that is showing up in the language. Therefore, things are changing now.
Clif, hi, I've got to cut it off right there. Your report is $99 for anybody that wants to speculate, and you did 30 top, evidently 30 of your top cryptocurrencies that you did in this report. It is called, and let me make sure I get this correct, so you can go to it's a cryptocurrency compendium. You came on here and killed it dead and added a bunch of extra stuff that I just put you on the spot for. I appreciate that.
Sure,
go
no worries.
to halfpasthuman.com. Is the website. Antarctica, I hope you come back and talk to us about Antarctica. Huge interest in Antarctica, alien technology, and the goings on down there. It just seems like it's Radio Free Europe going on there now. I mean, it's just been blacked out after all this attention and all the, hey, what are all those people going? Then nothing. silence, which
Yeah.
is freaky, a little creepy as well too. They went from all this activity into nothing. I don't believe that. But anyway, halfpasthuman.com, the cryptocurrency compendium. It is $100 this time, or $99. But if you're gonna delve into this, you couldn't have a better a guy who has deep experience. And I'm sorry I broke into the middle of that with your experience, because people have to know where you're coming from. I mean, you have deep experience. I mean, to come up with this, predictive linguistics and the billions of data points that you look at, and that one of these programs takes you weeks to run, and you have to have super fast, high-speed internet with huge bandwidth. You got all these servers and all this hardware behind you, and all this, decades of experience. I just wanted to kind of put all that out. I'm probably underselling your resume, but Clif, halfpasthuman.com. Thanks for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Oh, it was fun. Glad to.